I was sneaking a few bites of skewers at a street vendor when I ran into the rich heir I used to go to school with. He looked at me in surprise. Chloe, you've been sulking for quite a while this time. Only now you've decided to come back and look for Oliver? Oliver was the young master of the family where my mom used to work. He was also my first love. We were supposed to go study abroad together, but at the graduation party, someone drugged him. I rushed over to save him. In the chaos, as things spiraled out of control, he suddenly sobered up, and in front of everyone, threw me, half naked, out of the room. He said I'd do anything for money, that I was shameless. From that day on, I became notorious for being a gold digger. The overwhelming malice in the city suffocated me, so I left with my mom. We were gone for 2 years. While dialing someone on his phone, the rich heir told me, "You have no idea, Oliver went crazy looking for you these past couple of years. Now that you're back, just apologize and make up with him. You two are just a couple." Fights at the head of the bed. Making up at the foot. Fights at the head of the bed. Making up at the foot? I laughed. Under his stunned gaze, I stood up, gently touched my 6-month pregnant belly, tilted my head, and asked, "My baby's almost due. Who exactly am I making up with?" Chapter 1. This rich heir was Oliver's childhood best friend. He had also witnessed everything between me and Oliver, our awkward youth, and our love. He fumbled to hang up the phone, then stared blankly at my belly for a long while before murmuring, "This is bad, really bad. You actually got pregnant behind his back?" I had snuck out tonight. I didn't plan on reminiscing with him, so I turned to leave, but he rushed to block my way, his face openly anxious. "Chloe, Oliver's even richer now than when you two broke up. He's the most eligible bachelor in City A. He said, if you come back, he's willing to marry you. No prenup. Even." His passionate pitch slowly faded in the face of my blank expression. Still, he forced out one last desperate sentence. "Or, you could just get rid of the baby, and I'll pretend I never saw you tonight." My gaze turned cold as I sneered at him. "If you and Oliver are sick, go get treated. Why come out here to bite people?" His face turned beet red. He pointed at me for a long time but couldn't say a word. I was already far away when I heard him shout from behind, "Chloe, don't act all high and mighty. Weren't you the one dying to crawl into Oliver's bed back then?" Crawl into bed. That label had been slapped on me the moment I started dating Oliver, because he was a well-known rich second gen, while my mom was just the live-in housekeeper at his family's home. A rich young master and a housekeeper's daughter, it never looked like a match. But Oliver's love for me had always been passionate and unapologetic. People said I must have used underhanded tricks to make him fall for a servant's kid. Back then, I was young and proud, my dignity above all else. I only knew that I loved Oliver, and Oliver loved me, so I gritted my teeth, determined to prove through my own efforts that I, Chloe, was good enough for him. I refused the supplementary credit card he gave me. I never used his connections to pad my resume. From 18 to 22, our love, looked down upon by everyone, lasted a full 4 years. I thought we'd have many more 4-year stretches, until the year we graduated, when the daughter of the Sue family's longtime family friends came to spend the summer in City A. Staying with them, Undine was a real blue-blood socialite. She played the harp, rode horses, and could even break dance. She was radiant and dazzling, possessing everything I had, or didn't. More and more people began dropping hints in front of me about how the Sue and Koo families had an unspoken childhood engagement arranged long ago. That Undine had come back to City A to meet her fiancé and get engaged. I was anxious and unsettled, and finally made up my mind to find Oliver at the equestrian club. Every Saturday afternoon, he'd ride laps to decompress. But unusually, that day he wasn't on the field when I arrived. Instead, he was leaning casually against the fence, watching the arena. His eyes sparkled. I followed his gaze. Undine was dressed in full riding gear, cracking her whip with flair. I stared at her for a while, dazed, then turned to look at Oliver. He hadn't noticed me. His gaze was still locked onto Undine. My initial 3 parts of unease instantly turned into 10. I couldn't help calling his name. He paused when he saw me, then excitedly grabbed my hand and gushed about how amazing Undine's writing skills were. Finally, he asked, "Chloe, do you want to give it a try?" My face burned. I bit my lip and told him I didn't know how to ride. In that moment, the disappointment in his eyes nearly killed me. Chapter 2. That day, I cried and had a big fight with Oliver. He looked completely confused, but still tried his best to explain. He said he didn't like Ondine, and the so-called childhood engagement was just a drunken joke among the elders. No one took it seriously. It should have been fine once things were cleared up. But somehow, the bitterness lodged in my throat only swelled instead of disappearing. I wanted to tell him to keep his distance from Ondine. I also wanted to say, just wait for me. I'll grow into someone amazing too. Someone worthy of you. But all those fragile, girlish thoughts stuck in my throat. I couldn't get a single word out, because even saying one more word would have made me look pathetic. So I grew more and more silent. And Oliver didn't notice, because he and Ondine had so many shared interests to explore together. But Mrs. Koo noticed. She called me to the garden parlor, her tone as graceful as if we were just chatting over tea. Do you know why I didn't stop Oliver from dating you? I said nothing, because I knew you two could never last. Once he got it out of his system, he wouldn't obsess over it. See? Now he and Ondine are getting along so well. I stood there, feeling like a bucket of ice had been dumped down my back, making me shiver uncontrollably. Oliver said he doesn't like Miss Sue. I murmured. Mrs. Koo smiled silently, adjusting the shawl draped over her shoulders. Silly girl, if you walk away first, it gives him a graceful way out. And if I don't? Chloe, I'm informing you, not making a suggestion. Mrs. Koo meant what she said. She fired my mother. Mom cried and pounded her chest, flailing as she tried to sign her emotions in hand gestures. They said I stole something. She gestured, tears streaming down her face. They're withholding a month's pay. I swallowed my bitterness and apologized, promising her I'd find a way to get her wages back. But when I went to look for Oliver, he was gaming with Ondine. He barely glanced at me when I brought it up, tossed aside the controller, and asked in a strange tone, Chloe, why did you even start dating me in the first place? I froze, then quickly pressed him. Did your mom say something to you? Oliver, don't believe her. Oliver cut me off, visibly annoyed. Chloe, don't talk about my mom like that. I stood there blankly, staring at the irritated expression on his face. The way he looked at me was so unfamiliar. It made me tremble. I don't know how long passed before he turned around and waved me off without even looking back. All right, just go home. I stood outside the door and watched him sit back in his seat, pick up the game controller, and say something with a laugh. Ondine laughed too, leaning in close to him. That was the first time I thought, maybe Mrs. Koo was right after all. A few days later, both my mom's withheld wages and my study abroad offer arrived at the same time. I looked at Mom's joyful face, and at the acceptance email on my phone. After hesitating for a long time, I finally sent Oliver a message to say thank you and told him I had gotten my offer. Studying abroad together had always been part of the plan for Oliver and me. He replied with just an address and 2 curt words, come over. Oliver was hanging out with his childhood friends. They were all rich heirs from City A's elite families, whose favorite hobby was making trouble and stirring things up. As soon as I walked through the door, one of the rich heirs sitting closest to the entrance raised his glass and toasted me. Yo! Miss Chloe is here. Congrats on getting accepted into M University. Don't forget to look after your little bros in the future. Situations like this weren't new to me after I got together with Oliver, so I ignored them, walking straight over to Oliver, who was sitting with his head down. Before I could even sit down, that guy smirked and added, Chloe, you're basically the poster girl for climbing the social ladder through romance. Let's be real, if it weren't for Oliver, someone from your kind of background could never study abroad. The moment those words left his mouth, Oliver lunged forward and landed a punch right on his face. What the fuck did you just say? In the end, both of them were pulled apart and sent to the hospital. On the way there, Oliver wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and, without even looking at me, asked, Did you get the money? I was wiping the blood off the back of his hand. At his words, I nodded. He yanked his hand back and let out a short, cold laugh. Then he grabbed my chin, made me look into his eyes, and asked each word slowly and deliberately. Chloe, if I didn't have money, would you still want to be with me? A wave of helplessness and exhaustion surged through my chest, but I fought back the sting in my nose and looked straight into his eyes, answering seriously, "Oliver, whether you believe it or not, I've always liked you. Not your money." Back then, my mom had been rejected by agencies for being mute. She'd been underpaid and kicked out more than once. It was Oliver, just passing by, who gave me a number, said his family was looking for a housekeeper and told my mom to give it a shot. That cocky yet clean smile on his teenage face still shows up in my dreams. He was one of the rare streaks of color in my bleak life. How could I not love him? But I knew Oliver didn't believe in me anymore. The look in his eyes was full of scrutiny, the kind of scrutiny someone at the top gives to a flatterer trying to suck up. Chapter 3. I began seriously thinking about ending things with Oliver. But it wasn't something I could dwell on too much, because every time I did, my heart twisted with pain. So, shamefully, I became a coward. I buried my head in the sand. Until that night, graduation party night, when I went to the storage room to grab some chairs. I saw Oliver staggering through the hotel hallway, about to collapse at any moment. My heart clenched instinctively, and I immediately rushed over to hold him up. His shirt was hanging open, and he kept muttering how hot he felt. I looked at his flushed, dazed face and assumed he was drunk. I struggled to support him and helped him into a lounge, but it wasn't until he pinned me down beneath him that I realized something was very wrong. I tried to push him off, but some part of me couldn't help thinking, maybe this was fate, making the decision for us. Maybe Oliver had made his choice, too. He raised his head and squinted down at me beneath him. "Chloe?" My hands trembling, I wrapped my arms around his neck, only to be yanked by the wrist and thrown to the floor the next second. Oliver clutched his head and looked down at me, stunned and furious. "Are you crazy? Do you even know what you're doing? You drugged me?" Clutching my chest, I looked up at him in disbelief. "Drugged you?" "No, I just saw you stumbling like you were about to fall." So I didn't even finish the sentence, because I saw the cold, mocking look in his eyes. "Keep going, Chloe. Keep lying. When did you become like this?" I fought back tears, struggling like someone gasping for air, trying to defend myself. "It wasn't me. I didn't do it. You can check the surveillance footage." All he gave me in return was silence, and that face, full of contempt and distrust. The silence froze my heart completely. I wiped my tears and forced myself to finally say what I'd been holding back for so long. "Oliver, let's break up." Oliver, silent up to this point, suddenly gave a cold laugh. He grabbed me and yanked me to my feet. "Chloe, wow, so now you're playing hard to get? Is money really that important to you? Fine." Before I could react, Oliver dragged me toward the door. He opened it, then shoved me out into the hallway. I froze. So did the students out in the corridor. Within seconds, someone started whistling, then more and more joined in, curled up on the ground. I trembled uncontrollably, desperately clutching the last scraps of fabric covering my chest. Some people even took out their phones to take pictures. Through chattering teeth, I begged the man standing in front of me, "Oliver, please, don't do this. Just give me something to wear." Oliver scoffed coldly, his voice void of warmth. "Something to wear? Chloe, did you think about clothes when you drugged me and tried to crawl into my bed? Isn't this the price someone like you has to pay to climb the ladder?" The moment he said that, the crowd erupted. Some called me a gold digger. Others said I deserved it. That was the moment I was nailed to the pillar of shame. After that night, I became a minor scandal in City A. The label of gold digger stuck to me like glue. Everyone who looked at me did so with scorn, many of them staring openly and maliciously at my chest. I was going insane trying to live in this city, so I cut all ties with everyone and everything from my past. Late one night, I moved out with my mother. When I left City A 7 years ago in disgrace, I never imagined I'd return one day. For a long time, just the thought of City A was enough to make me curl up in bed, shivering through the night, until today, when I ran into someone from the past again. All those old memories felt like they belonged to a previous life, but the calm in my heart reminded me that time truly is the best medicine. Still, I'm not the same Chloe I used to be, so I turned around without hesitation and slapped that foul-mouthed rich air across the face. "Go to hell." He stared at me, eyes wide. "Chloe, Got some guts now. Huh? Want me to call Oliver to come teach you a lesson? I laughed. All these years and you guys really haven't changed at all. Still the same arrogance. But he mistook my amusement for fear and pointed at my belly. Good. At least you know you've screwed up. Now hurry up and get rid of that baby. Oliver's been pining for you all these years. You're just one step away from climbing the social ladder. Isn't that the life goal for someone like you? Climbing the ladder? Well, I did climb once, 7 years ago, when Oliver turned me from a decent girl into a citywide disgrace. I curled my lips in a sneer. How do you know my husband isn't better than Oliver? The rich heir's expression flickered with doubt. He looked me up and down. No way. Families like that would never let a housekeeper's daughter through their front door. He paused. Then his face lit up like he'd figured it out. I get it now. You must have married some illegitimate son, right? I scoffed. Too lazy to respond. From behind me, he shouted, Chloe! You better not regret this. Whether or not I had guts, I didn't know, but he sure didn't. He went and told Oliver I was back in City A. At the time, I was happily picking out baby clothes at a maternity store. A shop assistant tapped my shoulder and gestured to the side. Is that the baby's father over there? He's been watching you for a while. My heart skipped a beat. I turned with a smile, and that smile froze the second I saw who it was. Chapter 4. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end out of reflex. Oliver stood there in a tailored suit, eyes locked directly on me. When he saw me looking back, he took a few hesitant steps forward, then stopped. Chloe. I placed a protective hand over my belly and stepped back, frowning without saying a word, ready to walk away. The sharp clack of leather shoes chased after me. In the blink of an eye, Oliver stepped in front of me. His gaze drifted from my face to my prominent belly. His expression dazed. You got married? And had a baby? There was nowhere to hide, so I simply nodded, calm and unapologetic. Yes. His face turned pale in an instant, and the hand hanging at his side began to tremble slightly. That tremble, that was Oliver's tell whenever he was on the verge of a breakdown. My eyes moved away from his hand, steady and unshaken. As I looked at him, I've got things to do. Will you move? Oliver acted as if he hadn't heard me. His voice was hoarse. You used to say we'd have 2 kids someday, a boy and a girl. You said you'd teach our children. I cut him off, irritated. Is your memory broken? We broke up 7 years ago. He stood frozen, eyes rimmed red, and argued back. No, I never said we were breaking up. I was just too angry at the time. I went looking for you afterward, but you had moved away. How could you just vanish without telling me? Chloe, how could you be so cruel? Because I couldn't survive in City A. I gave him a small, bitter smile. Oliver, back then, I really almost didn't make it. He furrowed his brow, clearly wanting to say something. I continued. My inbox was flooded with messages asking me how much I charged for a night. Strangers came knocking on my door in the middle of the night. I nearly couldn't even get my diploma. But tell me, what exactly did I do wrong? All I ever did was fall for a guy who happened to come from money. So tell me, Oliver, how do you even have the face to stand in front of me now? Oliver's eyes were bloodshot. His voice cracked as he looked at me in despair. I don't know. Chloe, I really thought you were the one who drugged me that night. So, I gave a cold laugh. So, you eventually found out the truth? He nodded stiffly, telling me he had checked the security footage a month after I vanished and caught the real culprit. It was a junior from his student club. I gave a nonchalant "oh." After all this time, the truth didn't matter anymore. But Oliver didn't see it that way. He stubbornly believed that if everyone who had wronged me just apologized, then everything I'd been through could somehow be erased. Chloe, I'll make it up to you. I can transfer part of my assets to you, or give you whatever you want, cars, houses, jewelry, anything. As long as you forgive me. I lowered my eyes, too tired to even be angry anymore. Sure, I'll forgive you, as long as you promise to never show up in front of me again. Oliver froze, staring at me like he couldn't believe what he just heard. After a long pause, he shook his head and reached out, trying to hug me. I instinctively stepped back, shielding my belly. He stood there, stiff and awkward. His eyes dropped to my hand resting on my belly, and his voice turned ghostly soft. That man, The one you had this baby for, is he richer than me? Can he give you more than I could? I let out a cold laugh and raised my head, locking eyes with his. Sharp and unwavering. He flinched, looking away in embarrassment. Oliver, I don't know where you got the idea that I was ever with you for your money, but I, Chloe, can honestly say, I never took a single advantage of you in the 4 years we were together. Looking at Oliver's lost expression, a wave of disgust surged in my chest. I didn't want to say another word. This time, Oliver didn't chase after me, but his gaze still clung to my back, like it didn't know how to let go. Chapter 5. Oliver seemed dead set on clinging to me, like some tragic male lead in a soap opera. He would stand downstairs outside my building all night long. He didn't do anything, just stared at me all day with that haunted look. As time went on, the neighbors in the complex started looking at me weirdly too. I was terrified that what happened 7 years ago was going to repeat itself. So after some thought, I walked downstairs and stood in front of Oliver. He looked up at me in surprise. I took a deep breath and forced myself to speak. Stop coming here. Are you trying to ruin me all over again? I'm married. My child is due in 2 months. What's the point of this now? Oliver glanced at my belly. A flicker of pain flashed through his eyes before he looked away. I turned to leave, but he grabbed my wrist. His tone filled with both pleading and hope. You didn't really get married, did you? I looked up at him in shock. His expression turned more certain. This whole time, I've only seen you going in and out of the building. There's no father, right? This baby doesn't have a dad? He glanced down at my belly again, his voice rough. I can be the father. Your own kid is the one with no dad. A cold, stern voice rang out from nearby. I instinctively turned around. There, dragging a suitcase in one hand and holding a greasy bag of skewers in the other, stood a man in a windbreaker, dusty from travel. If looks could kill, Oliver would have died 1,000 times on the spot. Simon glared coldly at Oliver, but when his eyes met mine, all the sharpness melted away. Chloe. I shook off Oliver's hand, eyes suddenly stinging with tears, and rushed toward him. Why'd you take so long to come back? Oliver had been haunting my building like a rabid dog, and I was heavily pregnant. Moving wasn't an option. Simon stepped up quickly and caught me in his arms, gently patting my back before handing me the paper bag of skewers. Don't eat too much, he said softly. Then he looked past me at Oliver, who was still frozen in place. Mr. Koo? Lusting after another man's wife and child isn't exactly something a decent person does. Oliver Koo's face turned pale. He looked at me in a panic, eyes begging. I nodded in agreement. Exactly. It's shameless, morally bankrupt. Even. It was like someone had punched him in the gut. He looked like he might shatter on the spot. But a proud, privileged young master like him could never tolerate humiliation. He turned to Simon and tried to rally some dignity. Who even are you? Chloe's about to give birth and you weren't even around. What can you offer her and the baby? Street food skewers? Simon frowned and looked at me, his eyes full of guilt. I'm sorry. Has it been really hard while I was gone? I've been a lousy husband. I hated seeing him blame himself like that. So I quickly leaned in to hug him. What are you talking about? You were out doing important things. You're not like other people. Oliver stood there, pale and speechless. I looked at the face I used to dream about for years, and all I felt now was disgust. My expression hardened. What gives you the right to judge him? Do you have any idea how much support he gave me all those years abroad? And you? You speak like you were so devoted, but did you really try to find me? My university was just 1 street away from yours. Even after I left City A, I still chose to study abroad. Oliver always assumed I only got there because of him, but he never knew that every school I applied to offered me a full scholarship. He never cared about my efforts, so he trampled all over them. One time abroad, I even got caught in a random shooting. Simon had just happened to be sitting at the same table and shielded me with his own body. So don't come back here again. You're bad luck. With that, I took Simon's arm and walked away with him. Oliver stood frozen, his panicked gaze darting back and forth between our retreating figures. But he had no right to call after me anymore. To me, he was the outsider now. Chapter 6. After we got home, Simon was clearly affected by Oliver's words. He kept staring gloomily at my belly, looking dispirited. I wiped the sauce from the corner of my mouth, stood up, and gently pressed his face against my bump. He's well behaved. Want to talk to him for a bit? Simon wrapped his arms around my waist and whispered, voice low and heavy. It's my fault. He'd been away from home for a long time due to a secret experiment, not something he had control over. I couldn't help but tease him. So, you think Oliver's better and want to hand me over to him? Simon flared up instantly like he'd been shocked, his face turning bright red. He doesn't deserve you. I sighed and patted his head. 7 years have passed. I don't know what kind of delusion he's living in. Back then, he suspected I was only with him for his money and broke things off like I was worthless. Now he's acting like I'm dying to get back together for his money. It's beyond ridiculous. After that day, Oliver never showed up again. But Simon, on the other hand, had been sneakily working on something in secret. One day, he handed me an evening gown and said he was taking me to a banquet. I stood outside a very familiar mansion, feeling complicated emotions twist inside me. The banquet you mentioned, it's at the Hiiii residence? Simon adjusted his tie, serious as a soldier heading to battle. Chloe, tonight you've been invited as the guest of honor. I was completely baffled, until I saw Mr. and Mrs. Hiiii walking quickly toward us from afar. After all these years, Mrs. Hiiii was still elegant, draped in a shawl, graceful as ever. Only this time, her perfectly composed smile faltered for just 1 second when her eyes landed on me. She quickly averted her gaze, pretending like she hadn't seen me. Mr. Hiiii extended his hand to Simon politely. Professor Sue, what an honor. Thank you for coming. Simon Sue shook his hand, then wrapped an arm around me and introduced me. This is my wife, Chloe. Mr. Hiiii didn't recognize me. He greeted me warmly. Mrs. Sue. Simon gently corrected him with a soft smile. My wife is also a distinguished scholar. She doesn't take my surname. Mr. Hiiii chuckled and nodded. Of course, Professor Sue. Miss Chloe, please, come in. As I stepped into the Hiiii mansion, so familiar yet so distant, I felt a wave of surreal detachment. All the shame and pain I once experienced here, to me now, it felt like another lifetime. Simon's warm hand rested gently on the small of my back. He leaned down and whispered, Wife, don't forget to smile. Make the ones who hate you hate even harder, because they still can't bring you down. I burst out laughing and instinctively glanced toward Mrs. Hiiii. Sure enough, that perfect face of hers was faintly tinted green with suppressed rage. To see someone she once looked down on now standing here as an honored guest, equal to her, that had to be hard to swallow. But I had to admit, I was loving every second of it. And when I saw the shock on Oliver's face across the room, the satisfaction peaked. My smile only grew wider. Then, out of nowhere, Mrs. Hiiii finally spoke. Chloe, it's been a long time. Mr. Hiiii, who had been introducing Oliver to Simon, paused and turned to her. You know Miss Chloe? Mrs. Hiiii adjusted the shawl on her shoulders and smiled graciously. Did you forget? Chloe's mother worked for us as a housekeeper for a few years. She kept her head down and missed the awkward tension that instantly swept over the crowd. And she was quite pitiful too. I think she was deaf and mute. If it weren't for her stealing things. Before she could finish, she suddenly clapped a hand over her mouth, looking apologetic. Oh dear, was I talking too much? Simon, expressionless, cut in coldly. If you know you talk too much, maybe try shutting your mouth. Mrs. Hiii's face turned from green to white in seconds. Even Mr. Hiii's expression darkened. He glanced sideways at her and said flatly, Old age does come with poor memory and judgment. Oliver, take your mother out to the garden for some fresh air. Oliver, who hadn't said a word since seeing me, croaked out a quiet sorry, then supported the shaken Mrs. Hiiii as they left the room. The crowd around me and Simon quickly switched topics to diffuse the tension. I heard Miss Chloe was offered positions by multiple labs after returning to the country. A true rising star. Yes. And to raise a child so accomplished, her mother must be extraordinary. I stood still, watching the disheveled retreat of Oliver and Mrs. Hiiii, and for the first time, I truly felt just how fitting the phrase was. What goes around really does come around. Chapter 7. I ran into Ondine at the banquet. She hadn't changed a bit, still dazzling as ever. She raised a champagne glass and approached me with a smile. I honestly thought I'd never see you again in this lifetime. I tilted my head and thought for a moment, then said, I guess I climbed the social ladder. Undine froze for a few seconds, then burst out laughing, holding her stomach. Oliver and his social class-obsessed mother must be fuming. Huh? Seriously, it's the 21st century. Even back then, I thought that woman was out of her mind. I smiled faintly, but didn't respond. Undine hesitated for a second, then leaned closer and whispered, "Do you know why Oliver suddenly thought you were with him for money back then?" I scoffed. His mother put that idea in his head, right? She gave me a confirming look. She made an audio and video recording. The audio was a cut-and-paste job, spliced together from your voice clips. The gist was that you were playing the long game to land a rich husband, and once you married Oliver, your whole life would change. She was afraid he wouldn't believe just the audio, so she made a video too. Undine's lips curled with disdain, but Oliver heard the audio and just believed it. I stood there for a moment, then let out a humorless chuckle. That's ridiculous. He probably never believed me from the very beginning. Deep down, he always thought I wasn't good enough for him. That's why the moment his mother dangled that edited audio in front of him, it hit the exact nerve he'd been trying to ignore. He didn't even try to confirm it with me, just sentenced me on the spot. "Why didn't you tell me?" Both Undine and I turned around at the voice. Oliver stood there, eyes red, on the verge of breaking down. "Undine, you knew. Why didn't you tell me?" Undine looked momentarily awkward. I sighed and stepped in front of her. "Oliver, calm down. You're the one who chose not to believe me, not her. Don't shift the blame just to make yourself feel better." He forced a hollow smile, tears glistening at the corners of his eyes. "Chloe, I loved you." I frowned. His gaze scanned my face slowly, every inch filled with sorrow. "I loved you so much that I kept wondering why someone like you would ever fall for me. So when I heard that audio, I thought, maybe that was the answer. I couldn't accept that you might have loved me for my money. It made me feel ashamed. But then later, I wished that had been the reason." He let out a bitter laugh, a tear finally slipping down his cheek. "Chloe, I'm sorry. The truth is, I never deserved you." His apology came too late, and at the worst possible time. I lowered my gaze and said flatly, "Now that everything's been said, could you stop bothering me from now on?" He nodded in defeat, then turned and walked away, slow and aimless. Undine let out an exaggerated sigh of relief beside me and patted her chest. She fished a business card out of her clutch and handed it to me, her tone warm and familiar. "This is my husband's card. He's been trying to get a one-on-one with Professor Sue." I figured, instead of letting the Koo family have the opportunity, why not work with me? I took the card with a polite smile, thanked her, and said goodbye. Then, in a quiet corner, I crumpled it and tossed it in the trash. I thought to myself, this world of backroom politics and high society maneuvering, I'll never belong to it. Luckily, Simon doesn't care. He only cares about getting me home and making me a bowl of noodles. "You barely ate anything tonight. You must be exhausted." As I slurped my noodles, I told him everything about how Mrs. Koo had framed me all those years ago. Simon's face turned stormy with rage. In the end, he snorted coldly. "The Koo family? I wouldn't work with them even if they begged me." I smiled so hard my eyes squinted. Simon's lab had recently made a breakthrough, leading the entire industry. Whichever company gets ahead now would dominate the field for at least the next decade. And Simon, as the project's core figure, holds real influence. No wonder Mr. Koo had treated him with such courtesy. Looks like Mrs. Koo's life is about to get a lot more uncomfortable. Chapter 8. Mrs. Koo wasn't nearly as composed as I thought she'd be. She invited me to a cafe, and brought along 4 bodyguards built like tanks. I stared at her with biting sarcasm. She wore oversized sunglasses, and her immaculately manicured nails were digging so hard into her palms they nearly broke skin. After a long silence, she took a deep breath and waved her hand. In no time, the table and floor were covered with luxury brand gift boxes of all shapes and sizes. I remained completely unmoved, if anything. I almost laughed. "Mrs. Koo, what is this supposed to be?" Her lips pressed into a tight line, and she forced herself to spit out the words. "Miss Chloe, I apologize for what I said that day. I gave a flat O. I don't forgive you." She suddenly stood up, her chest heaving violently, then forced herself to sit back down, swallowing her rage. Chloe, Oliver's cut me off completely because of you. Haven't you held onto your grudge long enough? I shook my head mockingly. He cut you off because you treated him like an idiot. What's that got to do with me? Mrs. Koo slowly took off her sunglasses. For the first time in my life, her perfectly straight posture slouched in front of me. Chloe, I underestimated you. You're just a housekeeper's daughter. What's so great about you? You reek of poverty down to your very soul. And yet Oliver's gone completely insane for you. He said he wanted to marry you after you both came back from studying abroad. I'm his mother. I couldn't just stand by and watch him throw his life away. I laughed even more bitterly. Wow, Mrs. Koo, it must really pain you to sit at the same table as someone so beneath you. Well then, I won't trouble you any longer. Tell your bodyguards to move. But she wasn't done. She gave me one last unwilling glare. Convinced Simon to work with the Koo group. She paused, then continued, once the contract is signed, you can divorce him. I'll allow you to marry Oliver, but the child in your belly can't come with you. My smile disappeared. My face went ice cold. I grabbed the coffee cup on the table and flung it straight into her face. You and Oliver really are cut from the same cloth, completely deranged. Mrs. Koo stared at me, stunned. She jumped to her feet, utterly shocked. Chloe, are you insane? Simon's just a professor. He could work his whole life and never come close to the Koo family's legacy. I couldn't help it, I swore. F*** your legacy. If your Koo family is so powerful, what are you doing groveling to me right now? You say my soul reeks of poverty. Well, yours is so filthy it makes people sick. You'd better get your dogs out of my way, or I swear I'll drag this whole damn thing online and blow it up. I've got nothing to lose. Mrs. Koo's face turned pitch black, like something out of a horror movie. And just then, the cafe door slammed open. Oliver stumbled in, reeking of alcohol. Mom, what are you trying to do to Chloe? Mrs. Koo was shaking with rage. Did you see what she just did to me? While they argued, I tried to quietly slip out. But the moment I reached the door, a sharp pain in my belly bent me over. Oliver heard the sound and rushed over to hold me up. Chloe, what's wrong? I gritted my teeth, shook his hand off, pulled out my phone from my pocket, and called Simon. I'm going into labor. I hung up and immediately dialed 911. Oliver insisted on getting in the ambulance with me. He sat curled up in the corner, completely lost. Chloe, don't be scared. I'm here. I rolled my eyes. You being here is the scary part. The Koo family is like a cursed stick. Everyone they touch ends up in disaster. After the baby was born, I was wheeled out of the operating room. Simon came rushing over, crying like a mess, legs barely supporting him. I weakly tugged his hand, motioning for him to hold the baby. In the distance, I spotted a bruised and battered figure huddled near the corner. He was staring at Simon cradling the baby with an expression full of unhidden envy and jealousy. After a long pause, he let out a deep sigh and disappeared back into the shadows. Later, Simon told me he went to plead with his former professor, pulled some serious strings, and got Mrs. Koo locked up in detention for a few days. The moment she got out, she was greeted by Mr. Koo's divorce papers. All the so-called dignity she clung to shattered into dust. She left the country in disgrace. As for Oliver, after his parents' divorce, a half-brother suddenly appeared in the company, a very capable one. From what I heard, and his position began to wobble. I heard about all this, and promptly forgot it. These days, Simon's favorite thing is to stand outside the research institute with our baby, waiting for me to get off work. Two faces, one big, one small, pressed together, looking at me with pitiful eyes. I couldn't help but laugh. I reached out and pinched both cheeks. All right, but if you kill my plants again, you're both in trouble. The two of them immediately burst into cheers. Simon held the baby in one arm and wrapped the other around me as we walked forward. While crossing the street, I felt a pair of eyes watching me. I turned instinctively and saw a car window slowly roll up. Behind the glass, a pair of eyes were fixed on us, filled with envy, as they watched a perfectly happy little family walk away together. My boyfriend got married, and the bride wasn't me. I stood beneath the stage, watching him hold hands with another woman. He said he didn't remember me, But later, I clearly heard him tell her, "No one will bother us anymore." Chapter 1. I had a crush on Justin for 7 years, from high school to college. At that time, Justin was someone everyone praised, and I didn't even have the courage to get close, to be able to look him in the eyes, to stand by his side as an equal. I chased him for 7 years. The day I confessed and succeeded, I threw myself onto the bed, too excited to sleep all night. The long journey of unrequited love was over, and we began our relationship. I thought we would walk through life together, hand in hand, but after an accident, he no longer remembered me. He even avoided my touch. I kept telling myself, "You've chased him for 7 years, so what's a little more waiting?" His memory would come back. But that day never came. Justin got married. Chapter 2. The wedding was grand. Justin held her hand and carefully put a diamond ring on her finger. That ring was so beautiful, exactly the style I liked. As I watched from the audience, tears began to fall. I clenched Selena's hand, trembling. If Justin hadn't forgotten me, would I be the one standing up there? Selena's expression changed. She looked at me, her eyes complicated. She didn't say anything, just gripped my hand tightly. I immediately smiled and said, "I'm just joking. As long as he's happy, that's all that matters." Really. Chapter 3. Justin's wife is beautiful, completely different from me in style. From afar, I saw her complain about how high her heels were and how tired she felt. Justin chuckled, gently patted her head, and said softly, "Thank you for your hard work, my lady." Her frown turned into a smile as she placed a kiss on Justin's cheek. Before I could keep watching, Selena blocked my view. I guess she was worried I'd cause a scene. I won't cause trouble anymore. The last time I tried to help Justin regain his memory, it gave him headaches for days. I don't dare to anymore, especially today, on his wedding day. How could I bear to ruin it? I smiled at Selena. I won't anymore. I won't ever again. I just wanted to take one last look today. See? Justin is still as gentle as ever. That's nice. I can control myself. I'm just a little sad. Chapter 4. After the wedding ended, I sat in my seat, unable to get up. I had imagined my own wedding with Justin so many times. Back when we were together, Selena and I stayed up for several nights talking. We discussed which wedding dress to choose, what kind of bouquet would look beautiful, whether the wedding should be traditional or Western. We even excitedly chose the menu. Staying up late into the night, we had everything planned out, except for the fact that I wasn't the bride in this wedding. I tilted my head to look at Selena, reminding myself I had promised not to cry today. But as the ceremony ended, I couldn't hold it in. What should I do? His future has nothing to do with me anymore. Selena, I've really lost him. I couldn't say it. 7 years of secretly loving him. 3 years of being together. Justin had been a part of my life for 10 whole years. And today, in front of me, he was gone completely. I don't even have the right to say I love him anymore. Chapter 5. I cried. When I woke up in the middle of the night, I couldn't breathe as I stared at the moon outside the window. I took deep breaths, feeling a stabbing pain in my chest. It took me a long time to recover from the suffocating feeling. By chance, I opened my old high school diary, flipping through pages filled with the innocent yet intense emotions of those years. I sat on the floor, reading for a long, long time. When you're young and like someone, that feeling lasts for a very long time. So long that you don't even know where it will end. Chapter 6. The diary was old but well preserved. Back then, I had thought about showing it to Justin, but I never got the chance. As I carefully opened the first page, my eyes turned red. It was the moment I first met Justin. September 21st. Sunny. The teacher ran over time with the lesson, so I didn't get to buy the mushroom noodles I wanted. But I met a boy today, and he didn't get the noodles either. He looked familiar. Maybe he's from my grade. I've heard some girls in my class mention him. I guess he noticed me too, because he looked over and smiled. His smile is really nice. My heart started racing, and I quickly looked away. September 23rd. Sunny. I went to get mushroom noodles again today. And what a coincidence, I saw that boy again. He was a few spots ahead of me in line, and I took a few extra glances. Both of us got the noodles today. Later, when I went to ask a question during evening study, I saw him again in the office. Such a coincidence. He even looks good from the side. I paid attention when I got back. Turns out he's Justin, the top student in our year. He's really amazing. If I work hard, could I get into the top ranks too? September 27th. Light rain. It rained today, and I stepped into a puddle. My shoes were soaked, and I felt uncomfortable all morning. I kind of hate rainy days. When I entered the cafeteria, I brushed past Justin as he was leaving. He's so tall, I barely reach his shoulder. October 25th. Cloudy. I think I've unintentionally started paying attention to Justin's meal times. He always seems to prefer eating later, when there are fewer people. Is this what top students do, always alone? Today, I deliberately lingered in the classroom before heading downstairs, but I didn't run into him. I felt a bit disappointed. Oh well, I'll eat and then work hard. There's so much to study. The afternoon class will be tiring again. I must remember to wash my face before class to stay awake. November 8th. The monthly exam results are out, and the evening study session was buzzing with excitement. Many students secretly ran to the office to check their scores early. I overheard them saying Justin was once again ranked first in the grade. He's so amazing. I slowly scrolled down the list, but my name wasn't even on the first page. I felt a little discouraged. We're not even on the same page. We're both just people, but the gap between us is so big. November 11th. My favorite sunny day. After many days, I finally got to eat mushroom noodles again. And this time, Justin was right behind me in line. When I noticed, I started stammering as I ordered, my face turning bright red. It wasn't until I found a seat that I realized, why was I so nervous? It's ridiculous. December 1st. Sunny, sunny, sunny. I guess because I've been paying attention so much. I've started seeing him more often, but I don't mind. Justin prefers water over drinks and always goes to the supermarket to buy a bottle after evening study. I also like to hang around near the supermarket entrance for a while. It's probably the most relaxing moment of the day. I don't think about anything. I just let my mind go blank. Then watch as Justin walks out with his water, following a few steps behind him. Then I slowly head back to the dorm. Chapter 7. I wiped my tears. Feeling a headache coming on, it was unbearable. Back then, I always liked being in a crowd, subconsciously looking for Justin, as if seeing him could put my anxious heart at ease. At the time, I probably didn't even know what liking someone meant. I just wanted to see him. Seeing him made me happy. I realized I liked him in the second semester of my first year of high school. One morning, I overheard a few girls in class gossiping. A girl from the neighboring class was planning to confess to Justin. This kind of news always spreads like wildfire in high school. The whispers during morning study were all about this. I unconsciously tightened my grip on my pen. That was the first time I ever lost focus in class. At lunchtime, the cafeteria was packed with people. From the moment I walked in, my eyes were constantly searching. And finally, I spotted Justin in a quieter corner where it wasn't too crowded. It was very cold today, and his jacket was thin. His expression was calm as he ate. He probably doesn't know about the confession that's going to happen tonight. But even if he did, I doubt it would affect him much. Ever since I met him, whether he was giving speeches in front of the whole school or participating in any activity, his expression was always serene and composed. Nothing seems to stir his emotions. But I've been restless all day. I've been secretly watching the girl who's preparing to confess. Among all the ordinary girls in this monochrome high school, she stands out like a colorful butterfly, quietly fluttering next to the boy. Chapter 8. Justin stood there. The lights on the field were dim, and I couldn't make out his expression. I could only see him bowing his head slightly, quietly listening to the girl in front of him confess her feelings. A confession. The top student, Justin. All these hot topics together were enough to stir a wave of excitement in our otherwise dull high school life. There were a lot of people who came to watch the spectacle, and while I was mingling in the crowd, I was more nervous than anyone, yet I hid it better than anyone else. I looked like just another bystander. silently watching from not too far away, waiting. That moment, when I think back to it now, still feels especially long. It was also in that moment, at the peak of my racing heart, that I realized, I think I might have fallen for this boy. The word like, just two simple characters, was enough to set my youthful heart in a constant flutter. He was like a breeze that casually swept by. And when I came to my senses, I realized that, without even knowing when, that breeze had already swirled into my heart. Chapter 9. The girl's confession didn't succeed in the end. I stood a little closer so I could hear clearly. I heard Justin's response. His voice was low and deep, yet extraordinarily gentle. He said, "Thank you for liking me, but for the sake of our futures, I won't accept. We should focus our energy on what matters at this moment. Flowers bloom in their season. I hope my presence doesn't hinder you. What do you think?" His pace was steady, neither fast nor slow. His rejection was firm yet gentle. A boy like this, during the teenage years, is nearly impossible to resist. I was no exception. Chapter 10. In our second year of high school, we were split into science and liberal arts classes, and Justin and I ended up in the same class. I still remember that day vividly, walking into the classroom at the same time as him. My emotions were unsettled even after evening study ended. How could I possibly calm down? I no longer had to pass by the hallway and steal a quick glance at him through the window. I no longer had to search for his figure in the cafeteria every day. I no longer had to rely on the other girls in class to know about his daily life. I couldn't let myself appear too happy, but I clearly remember that day. My diary was filled with a whole page. Chapter 11. When he's in class, he's always so focused and serious. He can always grasp the key points of the lesson immediately. I worked hard to keep up with him, just to get a little closer. Every time the monthly exam results came out, I paid attention to the gap between our scores. Even closing the gap by one rank would make me happy for an entire afternoon. That meant I was getting closer to him, slowly but surely. Chapter 12. That day, I finally mustered the courage to say my first words to Justin. I asked him for help with a math problem. Justin was always incredibly patient with his classmates, and he explained every step in great detail. After he finished, he looked up at me and asked, "So, did you get it?" Without thinking, I nodded. But in truth, I hadn't understood. In the moment when I was near someone I liked, my brain simply couldn't function properly. After class, I spent a long time trying to figure it out on my own. When I finally looked up, I saw Justin standing by my desk, with a hint of amusement in his voice. He stared at me for a couple of seconds before saying with a smile, "Actually, I can explain it again." I was stunned and stood there for a moment before blurting out, "Huh?" Justin bent down slightly, took the pen from my hand, and before he started explaining again, he tilted his head to meet my gaze and said gently, "This time, make sure you follow my thought process and listen carefully." The sunset that day was brilliant, painting the sky red, and it also turned my face red. If anyone could hear my heartbeat, they would have surely noticed how excited it was at that moment. Chapter 13. In that month's exam, Justin and I scored the same in math. We tied for the highest score in the grade. I held my test paper, tears welling up in my eyes. All the hard work during that time had not been in vain. I didn't dare to disrupt his progress. The only thing I could do was steadily get closer, step by step, to wait for the right moment, to wait until I was good enough. Then, I would confess. Chapter 14. Unrequited love is a personal battlefield of chaos. In countless moments that Justin wasn't aware of, behind my facade of calmness, my heart was in complete turmoil, too messy to examine closely. But in those countless sleepless nights, just thinking of that belief was enough to keep me going. Back then, I always awkwardly used questions as an excuse to get close to him. He always managed to answer each question flawlessly. He remembered my name, and that alone made me happy for a long time. Evening study sessions were always my favorite, because that was when the teacher would often ask Justin to sit at the desk in front of the classroom. As long as I looked up, I could see him. Chapter 15. The best achievement I ever had was becoming the first person to knock Justin off the top spot in the grade. During that study session, everyone was talking about my outstanding performance. Only Justin sat quietly at his desk, looking at his test paper. Maybe he noticed my gaze because he looked up slightly, and our eyes met before I had a chance to look away. At that moment, something seemed to explode in my chest. Justin didn't say a word, but he raised his wrist and gave me a thumbs up. That simple and pure feeling of liking someone is still an emotion that's hard to resist even now when I think back. Chapter 16. In the second half of our third year, the pressure became overwhelming, and I had countless moments of breakdown. My grades fluctuate up and down. The head teacher called me into the office, and when I came out, my eyes were red. There weren't many people left in the classroom. Most had gone for dinner. I buried my head on my desk, and suddenly, someone tapped me on the back. That was the first time Justin came to talk to me. I looked up at him, and suddenly felt aware of my disheveled state, wanting to lower my head in embarrassment. "Lisa," Justin said softly, "I have something for you." He opened his palm, his fingers were long and well-shaped, and in the center of his hand was a small blue paper star. I was too stunned to react, just staring at him without taking it. Justin placed the star on my desk, leaned back against the table, and said calmly, "It's normal for your grades to fluctuate. Don't get too anxious. Carefully review the mistakes and focus on them. Practice makes perfect. You can do it, right?" It was then I realized Justin had come to comfort me. Being comforted by the boy you have a crush on, how does it feel? It's probably when you have tears in your eyes but can't stop smiling. I asked Justin, "Do you feel like that too sometimes?" Justin smiled. "Of course. When you knocked me off the top spot." I burst into laughter through my tears. I asked Justin if he had a dream university in mind. Justin said he wanted to apply to H University. H University. I silently noted it in my heart. That became my goal for the second half of the school year. Chapter 17. I placed that paper star on my desk, and every time I looked at it, I couldn't help but marvel. Justin's star was so beautifully folded. It wasn't until one day, by accident, I opened it and discovered a small line of writing inside. The handwriting was neat and elegant. "I hope you shine like a star." Chapter 18. The next day, when I opened my eyes, it was already noon, and I was still holding my diary in my arms. The page that was open felt damp. I wiped my eyes and realized my face was covered in tears. I had a long dream where I was crying the whole time. I kept crying, but when I woke up, I couldn't remember why. After tidying up, I noticed the rare good sunlight today. Selena was already in the living room. She had been staying with me this whole time. I wanted to reward her, so I decided to cook a meal. But on the way to the supermarket, I ran into Justin and his wife. I froze, unable to move, because I seemed to hear Justin mention my name. He said to her, "Lisa won't be showing up anymore. She won't bother us again." I stood there, frozen as if I had fallen into an icy pit. Justin, it seemed, remembered me after all. Chapter 19. I pushed my cart and walked toward them, but before I could get close, Selena pulled me back from the corner. She looked at me with concern in her eyes. "Lisa, what's wrong?" I raised my hand and pointed at Justin, who was leaving in the distance. I just heard him say my name. "Selena." My voice trembled. "Does he remember me?" Selena followed my gaze and sighed softly. "Lisa, you've shown up around him so many times. Isn't it normal for him to remember your name? He's married now, and even if he does remember, what can you do?" Selena's voice was calm, with a soothing tone. "You said you wouldn't bother him anymore. But what if he really does remember me?" Selena gently took my arm and led me in another direction, lowering her eyes as she whispered, "He won't." Chapter 20. That night, I had a dream. I dreamed of the night I confessed to Justin. Back then, Justin didn't seem surprised. He stood in front of me, listened to my confession, and suddenly laughed softly, leaving me completely at a loss for what to do. After a while, I heard his voice, tinged with amusement. He said, "It really wasn't easy, was it? Waiting for your confession." As soon as he said that, my brain completely froze. Ever since Selena figured out that I liked Justin, she had been pushing me to confess. But I always thought, just wait a little longer. Just get a little closer to him. Wait for the right moment. Wait until I'm good enough. Gradually, Justin started appearing around me more and more. Whenever I faced difficulties, Justin would patiently guide me step by step to solve them. Even when I was close to him, I would still find myself getting lost in thought. Flustered, Justin, with his usual patience, would lower his eyes to look at me, half teasing and half serious, saying, "Actually, I can explain it a second time." At that moment, I was instantly reminded of those high school evenings bathed in the glow of the sunset. It was also at that moment that I realized, after all this time of chasing after him, I was finally starting to catch up. Step by step, I had thought it was the teachers who arranged it, but later I found out that it was Justin who had taken the initiative to get closer. While I was working hard, out of his sight, to catch up to him, he too was quietly helping me grow, in ways I couldn't see, until I reached the same pace as him. Before, my understanding of the word gentleness was only a simple one. It wasn't until the night of my confession that I fully grasped the power of when gentleness and Justin intertwined. He told me, "Don't feel inferior. I want you to genuinely believe you are excellent. Not just look up to anyone, whether it's in studies or in love. You don't need to look up to me, you're already a moon yourself." It was only then that I understood the effort Justin had been putting in behind the scenes during this time. Chapter 21. After waking up, I couldn't fall back asleep. I stared out the window, instinctively turning south, quietly gazing outside. I stared for a long time, as if that was the only way to ease my sadness. Chapter 22. I couldn't help it, I had to go find Justin, but just as I was about to approach him, I hesitated. I stood on the other side of the road, watching the two of them, unable to take a step forward. Justin was carefully holding her hand, his eyes lowered as he looked at her. I couldn't hear what he said, but the woman smiled softly and gave him a light pat on the arm. The atmosphere between them was so warm and harmonious, leaving no space for anyone else. What role could I play if I went over there? I didn't know, but my head hurt. The pain was suffocating. Justin, how could you forget me? Chapter 23. The next day, I went to that supermarket again. Justin wasn't there, but his wife was. She clearly didn't like me, giving me a once-over with her eyes. It seemed like she wanted to say something but held back. Instead, she turned around and left. I stared at the diamond ring on her hand, and an overwhelming wave of sadness hit me, my eyes instantly welling up with tears. Chapter 24. After that, I often saw Justin and his wife together. I saw Justin bring her a bouquet of flowers every day. I saw her hold onto Justin's arm and ask him what he wanted for dinner. I saw them together feeding a stray cat. They looked perfect together. I stood there in silence, watching them for a long time. The urge to confront them gradually faded as I watched these tender moments. Maybe things are fine just as they are now. He has someone he loves, and someone who loves him. Chapter 25. Maybe because I appeared around them so frequently, Justin noticed. That day, Justin reached out to me. A simple message, "Let's talk." That day, it rained heavily. An autumn storm. I sat in a cafe, quietly waiting, watching as the rain started to slow. Justin finally arrived, much later than expected. He pushed the door open, his eyes scanning the cafe before they landed on me. His expression was calm, without a trace of emotion, so calm that it felt like he was looking at a stranger. I sipped the cold coffee in my hands, its chill reflecting my current state of mind. I had chosen this cafe on purpose. It was a place we used to frequent together. Even the table was the one we used to sit at. Justin sat across from me without a flicker of emotion. He spoke politely but distantly. "Sorry to keep you waiting. I was held up by something, for some reason." As I looked at him, he seemed so different from Justin in my memories. Maybe the only one who stayed in place was me, while everything else has changed. I should be the one apologizing for disturbing you again. Justin smiled slightly. "No need to apologize. I actually have something to discuss with you as well." When he said that, I knew that after today, we wouldn't have the chance to meet again. Yes, he already has his own life. How could I keep intruding? I had expected this, but when the day finally came, it didn't make the sadness any easier. I looked up at him. I just wanted to confirm one last time, you really. As the last two words came out, I suddenly felt a lump in my throat, and Justin's face across from me became blurry. I fought back the urge to cry. You really don't remember me? The Justin who ran through the rain to bring me an umbrella. The Justin who came to my building in the middle of the night just because I said, I want to see you. The Justin who quietly helped me grow. For the sake of my insecurity, how could he suddenly disappear completely? I could feel my emotions reaching the breaking point, and my voice was choked with tears. In order not to seem too pathetic, and to maintain some dignity for this last meeting, I forced a smile, but it probably looked worse than crying. As Justin frowned slightly, his gaze stayed on me, watching me quietly, but he didn't answer. Several times I saw him start to speak, but he swallowed his words. The silence said everything. The way he looked at me now was so different from the Justin I once knew. If I could, I would rather believe he lost his memory, than accept that he no longer loved me. After a long silence, I finally came to my senses and spoke softly. I understand. Thank you. I wish you happiness for the rest of your life. Justin seemed to finally relax and nodded slightly. You too. Chapter 26. Justin left. Outside, the rain began to fall again, a soft drizzle. I sat by the window, staring in the direction he walked away. I don't know how long I sat there. It seems like, from my memories, I've always been behind Justin, quietly watching him. I was lucky enough to walk alongside him for a brief moment in time, but in the end, I still had to let him go. Justin, you forgot about Lisa who loved you silently for 10 years. You told her never to feel inferior in life. In love, you probably never expected that even now. Her heart still races for you, in every single moment that you're unaware of. If it were the old you, you'd probably call me a fool. But now, you feel so distant, so unfamiliar, that I can't even find the words to say. I just sat there, tears silently falling. How am I supposed to forget? Chapter 27. I sat there alone until nightfall. Just before the cafe closed, Selena rushed in. My eyes were swollen from crying, and when I saw the worry in Selena's eyes, I couldn't hold back the tears again. Selena, I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. I just wanted. Before I could finish saying one last time, Selena rushed over and pulled me into her arms. Her voice was choked with emotion. Why did you come here alone? How long have you been sitting here? You're wearing such thin clothes. Aren't you cold? She gripped my hands tightly. Lisa, I don't even know what to say to you. Next time, if you're going out, call me, okay? Don't go alone. Selena was always like this, standing behind me without hesitation. One last time, I forced a small smile. I won't go to see him again. Chapter 28. Whenever I mentioned Justin, the look in Selena's eyes was always filled with worry. She was probably afraid I'd fall into that dark place again. Gradually, I stopped expressing those feelings, and I stopped interfering in Justin's life. But it didn't make these days any less unbearable. Still, Selena never left my side. During breaks from work, she would take me to different cities to clear my mind. As long as I stayed busy, the memories didn't hurt as much. Sometimes, I'd look at Selena's back and suddenly realize that maybe things aren't so bad after all. Chapter 29. On the day of the first snow, I drove to Selena's building and called her down. Selena came rushing down without even combing her hair, looking flustered. When she saw me, she sighed in relief. What are you doing so late? I'm going back tomorrow anyway. What? I interrupted Selena, pointing to the trunk of my car. I gestured for her to open it. Selena gave me a suspicious look but opened it while mumbling. What is this? Why is it so mysterious? As the trunk slowly lifted, Selena's voice gradually faded. The light from the trunk reflected on Selena's face, and when she turned around, I could clearly see the tears in her eyes. Do you like it? It's for you. I had spent a good portion of my savings picking out some gifts that matched Selena perfectly. It took a while for Selena to process it. She looked up at me and suddenly burst into tears. Why are you doing this, Lisa? Thank you for being with me all this time. I leaned against the car, smiling. If it weren't for you, I probably wouldn't have made it through. That night, Selena was more emotional than ever, hugging me and crying her heart out. I know it's been hard for you lately, and as your friend, there wasn't much I could do to help. All I could do was stay by your side. I always knew you couldn't forget Justin, and I wasn't trying to convince you otherwise. I didn't plan to interfere with your decisions. I just wanted to make sure you stayed safe. As Selena spoke, she suddenly smiled. Lisa, you've actually helped me more. You're worth it. Chapter 30. Lately, I've been running around, trying to numb myself, and I thought I was finally forgetting Justin. But deep down, I still couldn't let go. That night, while watching a movie with Selena, I suddenly found an old, worn movie ticket. The date was exactly a year ago today. The day when Justin still loved me. We had probably planned to see a movie together. But now, things are different. The Justin of today, the one he loves, is no longer me. Selena's voice echoed from the front. She waved her hand, calling out, "What are you daydreaming about? The movie's about to start." I tucked the ticket back into my bag, like carefully storing away my feelings for Justin. Delicate, whole, buried deep inside. Undeniably, I still love him, in every little detail of my life, but I no longer have the right to disturb him. So, with every memory of you that I hold, I wish you happiness for the rest of your life. I looked up, meeting Selena's gaze, and responded. Coming. Chapter 1. Selena's perspective. It seems like Lisa is sick. She said she saw Justin. Justin has been gone for 3 months. My fingers tightened around my phone, growing cold as I asked, my voice breaking. Lisa, what did you say? Lisa's voice came through the speaker, calm and certain. I saw Justin right outside this bubble tea shop. As she spoke, her tone suddenly dropped, filled with sadness. But it seems like he doesn't remember me. Chapter 2. 3 months ago, the news suddenly broadcasted an extraordinarily moving story, along with a blurry video. It went viral on the internet. A boy, to save the girl he loved, bravely rushed into a fire. The girl was rescued safely, but under everyone's watchful eyes, the boy never made it out of that burning building. He disappeared from this world, along with the flames. In a time where love can be as fragile as paper, there still exists this kind of unwavering love. In an instant, the story evoked countless sighs and tears from people online, and the boy in the video was Justin. The moment I heard the news, my heart seized painfully. How could the world take away someone as gentle as Justin? But when I saw Lisa, I knew it was real. Justin was truly, forever gone. Chapter 3. Lisa had loved Justin for 7 whole years. Even as an outsider, I couldn't help but be moved by the depth of her feelings. The day they finally overcame everything and got together, Lisa was so happy that she treated our entire dorm to dinner. That night, she got so drunk, her face flushed as she proudly announced that she had successfully confessed her love. The whole dorm cheered for her, celebrating that she had won over her dream guy. After that, we often gathered together, planning everything: wedding dresses, engagement rings, even babies. Lisa's eyes sparkled every time she talked about it, but none of us ever expected that, in such a short time, Justin would be gone. Chapter 4. That was the first time I saw Lisa like that. She sat on the floor, like a broken doll. She wanted to speak, but her voice was hoarse from crying, unable to make a sound. She just kept silently calling my name. Selena, Selena, again and again, but she couldn't say anything more. I'm here, I whispered, trying to comfort her, but my words felt so weak that I even found it hard to speak. How do you comfort someone in this situation? I didn't know. I gently patted her back and cried with her through that long, agonizing night. Chapter 5. After Justin's death, Lisa fell seriously ill. Her emotions were constantly teetering on the edge of collapse. She hasn't cried much lately. Maybe it's because she's cried too much already, and there are no more tears left. She always sits by the window, quietly staring outside, without saying a word. That direction. It's exactly where Justin's accident happened. She keeps all her emotions bottled up inside, and during that time, I was extremely scared. I constantly took her out to help her clear her mind. She seemed to be getting better, even talking more, until today's phone call shattered the last bit of my inner peace. Lisa's emotional trauma is far worse than I had imagined. Chapter 6. Lisa was standing right outside the bubble tea shop, her eyes fixed on something in the distance. I followed her gaze and saw a figure that looked very much like Justin. But when he turned around, I saw clearly. It wasn't Justin. Lisa lowered her eyes, looking incredibly downcast. It seems like Justin doesn't remember me anymore. Lisa, I gripped her hand tightly, my voice trembling. What did you say? Say it again. Who is Justin? Lisa raised her hand and pointed to the boy. Right there. He's standing right there. But he doesn't remember me. In that moment, it felt like my heart plummeted into an icy abyss. Chapter 7. The boy's name was Eric. He stood a short distance away, staring at Lisa for a long time before finally looking up and asking me, "Is your friend sick?" "Yes." I nodded gently. "I'm really sorry for causing you trouble. I'll take her home right away." I handed Eric the 2 cups of bubble tea, apologizing again. Eric didn't accept them. He simply said, "Take your friend home." Chapter 8. I took Lisa to see a psychologist. Despite long sessions of counseling, nothing seemed to help. The doctor sighed, her tone filled with sympathy. Lisa has convinced herself that Justin is still alive. She's locked herself in a mental prison. She can't accept Justin's death, and her mind has formed a defense mechanism to protect her. She'd rather believe he's forgotten her and fallen in love with someone else than accept that he's gone forever. Chapter 9. I knew Justin wouldn't just disappear like that. Lisa had come back to life. She sat on the couch, hugging a stuffed animal, smiling brightly. I hadn't seen her this happy in a long time. She even crafted a whole story in her head about Justin being in a car accident and losing his memory. She clung to my hand, telling me she didn't blame Justin. He was just sick. She kept saying his memories would come back. She had waited for Justin for 10 years. A little more waiting wouldn't hurt her. She spoke so sincerely. I didn't even know how to break the truth to her. How could I start? Justin isn't coming back. Chapter 10. Every day, she would go to that street where the bubble tea shop was and wait for a while. Sometimes she would see him and want to speak but feared it would be too presumptuous. So she just silently watched. Sometimes, she would ask me, though it seemed more like she was asking herself. She would say, "How could Justin forget her? She's Lisa." After all, I had no answer, so I just patted her head and told her to be good every day. Chapter 11. The day Lisa lost control was when she saw Eric with his fiancée on the street. Her voice was trembling as she spoke to me. She said, "Selena, I didn't wait long enough for Justin to get his memory back. He's fallen in love with someone else. He's fallen in love with another woman. Right on that street." Lisa's voice choked with tears. I saw it with my own eyes. Chapter 12. I thought she would break down, scream, or run up to confront them, but she just stood there, silently crying, watching as Eric walked hand in hand with his fiancée, disappearing at the end of the street. After a long time, she murmured softly, "Justin, why didn't you keep your promise?" Chapter 13. Eric is getting married. Lisa asked me to take her there, promising she wouldn't cause any trouble or make things difficult for Eric. She tugged on my hand like a little child pleading for a toy. But in reality, she and Eric had barely spoken to each other. Her memories had become confused again. She had imagined Justin's wedding so many times. She just wanted to see it for herself. I went to speak with Eric and his fiancée, explaining the situation. They stayed silent for a long while before his fiancée gently nodded. They allowed Lisa to attend the wedding, as long as she didn't cause any trouble. Chapter 14. At the wedding, Lisa tugged on my sleeve and asked, If Justin hadn't forgotten me, would I be the one standing on that stage?" I wanted so badly to tell her that Justin would never forget her. Silly Lisa. Justin will always love you. But the man standing on that stage wasn't Justin. Chapter 15. The day after Eric's wedding, Lisa came out of her room, her eyes swollen and red. She told me she had a dream, a long, long dream. In the dream, she cried for what felt like forever, cried until she couldn't breathe. But when she woke up, she couldn't remember the dream. But, she said, pressing a hand to her chest and looking at me, it feels empty here. It hurts. I've forgotten the dream. I think I know what she dreamed of. Maybe. It wasn't a dream. It was a memory buried deep in her heart. A love etched into her very bones. Chapter 16. I've thought about Lisa's situation for a long time. And in the end, I decided not to tell her mother. First, because her aunt's health isn't good. And second, because seeing Lisa like this, I'd rather take care of her myself. No one understands better than I do how much Justin meant to Lisa. I want to pull Lisa out of this, but she's too deeply trapped. So deep that even with both hands, I can't reach her. Chapter 17. Lisa is probably trying to find Justin. She often runs out onto the street, but she never goes up to him or interrupts. I don't know what's going on in Lisa's mind anymore, but seeing her like this, it seems like she's even sadder than before. It feels like she's forcing herself to let go. This illness isn't any easier for her than facing reality, but I don't dare break it. At least in Lisa's mind, Justin is still alive. Maybe that's her only comfort, even if Justin doesn't love her anymore. Chapter 18. Sometimes I get lost in confusion. The pain of losing something after having it is much deeper than the pain of never having it at all. If separation is inevitable, why were we made to meet? Separated by life and death, yet unaware. The torments of life are varied, but the feeling of pain is always the same. I can no longer see the answers, but sometimes, I understand things with great clarity. The time I have left should be lived for the family and friends I love. After extreme hardship, good times will come. At the end of the road, something beautiful awaits us. Even if it's only a little, it's worth the journey. Justin's perspective. Chapter 1. When the fire broke out and the building was about to collapse. In that final moment, I felt incredibly fortunate that I could rush in and find you. You stood there in the flames, shaking your head desperately, trying to stop me from going further, but you were right in front of me. How could I turn back? Chapter 2. The fire was intense. The moment I rushed in, I had already prepared myself for the worst. I don't like doing things I'm not sure of. But this time, I couldn't calculate the outcome. I thought we could both make it out together. But pushing you out of the fire was the best I could do. Between the two of us, at least one had to survive. If there was only one chance, I would rather it be you. Chapter 3. I saw you cry. I know you've always been so stubborn. In the past, I taught you many things. This is the last thing I can teach you. You have to learn to let go. Lisa, you can see what I'm mouthing, right? Don't hold on to things you can't have. If you can't love someone, you have to let them go too. Your life is still long ahead of you, and I don't want you to be stuck in the past. This is the last thing I need to teach you. Lisa, you have to learn it. I won't get the chance to teach you again. Chapter 4. In this final moment, I want to say, I wish you happiness for the rest of your life. But I couldn't say it in time. I can't even see your face clearly anymore. The fire is intense, and the burning sensation on my skin is enough to drive someone mad. But it's okay. It's okay because I came. If I hadn't, it would have been you trapped here. Chapter 5. I never told you this, but I knew you liked me a long time ago. A long time ago. How could I not notice? The way your eyes burned with passion. Chapter 6. In these final moments, so many images are flashing through my mind, one by one, from high school to university, to when we finally got together. You were always insecure, and while humility is good, insecurity isn't. You're amazing and hardworking, and maybe you never realized it, but every part of you shines when you're moving toward your goals. A girl like you, very few guys could resist, and I wasn't one of them. In fact, the moment I realized I liked you, I was already prepared to confess. But the hesitant way you looked at me made me change my mind. Maybe I should wait a little longer. I didn't want you to feel inferior in this relationship. You wanted to work hard, so I decided to move forward with you. I wanted to wait until the day you truly felt confident. That's why, every day I waited for your confession. I was prepared. I was ready to respond after you gathered the courage to confess. with my own confession. I've always believed that the start of a relationship should be grand and official. And so was my love for you. This confession, our love story, was something I always intended to write with my own hands. I wanted you to know that you were never running toward me alone, I just reached the finish line before you. And I've been waiting for you here all along. Chapter 7. You once asked me, do you believe in reincarnation? I believe it exists. So don't be sad. You know me. I always like to be prepared in everything I do. That's why I'm always a little ahead of you. This time, too. I'm early. I'm preparing our home for the next life. Chapter 8. I was so focused on getting you out that I didn't have time to tell you. Lisa, I love you. You can feel it, right? Can't you? The end.